Hello, well that was quite a week, wasn't it? Certainly if you're a football fan, and not a great week if you're an England football fan, not just because we lost the finals, because everything that happened afterwards, and the Royals were front and centre in it. So welcome to the Royal Rota, your weekly podcast from ITV News, where you can catch up on all things Royal, either on YouTube or your favourite podcast platform. Lizzie's here, laughing at me.
As usual, hello.
I've got a kind of summer feeling about me today, like it's sunny outside, kind of feels like the Royals are kind of winding down, but not.
Yeah.
I've got a holiday booked in a couple of weeks' time. So
have you checked out?
I can't, well, no, not completely, but, you know,
we've got a couple more weeks.
Got a couple more weeks. Should we do one of these next week and make that the last one for the summer?
I reckon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should we decide that now? Or what do you think? I mean, maybe you want us to continue all the way through the summer when we've got nothing to talk about, when the Royals are all on holiday. Anyhow, so yes, we mentioned the football. Obviously, Prince William was there. Kate was there. Kate was also at the tennis. It's a sporty kind of thing.
It's a sporty kind of episode.
But then it got all a bit ugly and serious, didn't it, with all the disgusting racism that happened from some people, not everyone, of course, only a minority, but a abhorrent minority that they were too. And the Royals got involved in that, didn't they? But we'll talk about that. Do you want to quickly do the rundown of the week? It's quite a lot on your list. I'm just looking at.
I know. I've managed to gather together a longer list than anticipated.
Yeah, but the football being the main thing, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So a sporty top to the podcast this week, I'd say. We've got the football final between England and England and it was only a few days ago. England and Italy. I've tried to block it from my mind because, yes, sadly England lost. Various messages from the Royals and then personal tweets afterwards. After, as you mentioned, the racist abuse aimed at players. The Duchess of Cambridge was out of self-isolation, and she was seen at the finals of Wimbledon, the ladies' final and the men's final. And she also joined Prince William for the football final. And we also found out that the Duke of Kent was stepping down as president of the All England Club after 50 years. So we can show you some nice archive.
Kate's going to take over, but they haven't mentioned that.
They haven't said yet, but she's patron at the moment.
Yes.
Some great archive pictures this week of the Prince of Wales, and those were released on the day that he presented the parachute regiment with their new colours.
Yes,
there was
Wales jumping out of airplanes.
There was an announcement from Archwell Productions this week, only yesterday. Actually, someone got in touch with me to say that last week they thought was our first podcast where we didn't mention Harry and Meghan once. Oh. But we're going to mention them this week because Archwell Productions...
We were on the set of Coronation Street last week. And obviously, yes, if you didn't see, our podcast last week includes us being on the set of Coronation Street. So, you know, I think you should go and watch that if nothing else, once you finish with this one.
So they're creating their first animated series. Charles and Camilla were at a fancy glitzy do last night for the finale of Elephant Family's coexistence campaign. The Buckingham Palace Gardens opened to the public. Chris is drawing an elephant on his notes.
I just wanted to work. Actually draw an elephant.
You really do have a summery mood about you. It looks more like a duck.
A duck?
A duck.
Okay, I need to work on my elephant drawings.
Yeah.
I'll do that during this podcast, during your rundown.
Practice your art. And finally, there was an investiture at St James's Palace this week with the Prince of Wales, and lots of people from the NHS were honoured.
Only the second investiture, isn't it, since they came back after
third?
Right, okay, right. Let's start with football then, because you will know, of course, that there was a final of the Euros last Sunday at Wembley, England versus Italy. Wasn't quite the result that everyone wanted, although, as I keep pointing out to people, anything that ends, any football match that ends in a penalty shootout rather means that both those teams were about the same. There was nothing to tell between them.
So basically, it was a draw.
It was a draw that it was a draw that Italy, and congratulations to Italy, by the way, for winning. It was a draw that Italy won on penalties. Now, as you might know, at that event was Prince George in his suit. Now, there's been a lot of commentary about Prince George in his suit and whether a boy who is, what is he now, 7?
Yeah.
Whether he, could have worn an England shirt and a pair of shorts like the rest of the crowd.
Well, I think we spoke about this last week, and Prince George was in the royal box where they were all wearing suits.
Yep.
So, he was just fitting in, and I thought he looked very smart.
Yep.
But we know he does have an England shirt.
I mean, David Beckham was in a suit. Tom Cruise was there. He was in a suit, I think, from the shots I saw of him.
So, but if you cast your mind back to when Prince George turned 6, do you remember those lovely photos of him in his England shirt, laughing in the grass that the Duchess of Cambridge took of him?
Yes.
So we know he does own an England shirt, and we can also
tell. One day he'll be allowed to go to Wembley in an England shirt rather than in a suit.
No, I think he was just, he was dressed appropriately for the royal
I suppose that's
box.
one of the disadvantages of having to go to the football in a VIP box. I don't know. I've never been invited.
But those pictures of him when we scored that first goal were just lovely, weren't they?
And Luke Shaw scored that first goal in, was it 1 minute 57 seconds or whatever, or 2 minutes in. That was the highlight of everyone's evening. Kind of went a bit downhill from there, but not massively. Yes, he was
hugging mum and dad and just jumping around, and I think he was sort of speaking for the nation.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%. Anyway, so should we fast forward to the penalty shootout? And then obviously there were 3 members of the England team who missed penalties. And that is when I think it's fair to say an ugly side to England was on display. The racist comments on social media about those who missed penalties. And I suppose the following morning, wasn't it, we were thinking this is the kind of thing that Prince William will want to speak out about. Yeah,
and he's spoken out about it before. He's made, no secret of the fact that he finds it absolutely sickening and abhorrent. And, he's president of the FA. And so, he has the platform where he can speak out about it and condemn it. And he did. And he released a personal tweet. And he said, "I am sickened by the racist abuse aimed at England players after last night's match. It is totally unacceptable that players have to endure this abhorrent behaviour. It must stop now, and all those involved should be held accountable. W."
And actually, William wasn't the only one to comment on it as well. The Prince of Wales, who I think most people will acknowledge, has done a lot to champion diversity in this country and elsewhere, of course, and, acceptance of different faiths, etc. They put out a quote of something that he wrote or said in 2020, which was, "Recognising the rich diversity of cultures which make this country so special and in many ways unique lies at the heart of what we can be as a nation." They released it with a picture of some of the England team yesterday as they gripped hold of one another during that penalty shootout. And then the Prince of Wales, or Clarence House, wrote, "Well done, England, on your fantastic Euro 2020 performance. You made us proud." Yes, they made us proud. There were certain members of this country who didn't make us proud, I think it would be fair to say. Yeah, and the Prince of Wales's Prince's Trust, they also tweeted about Marcus Rashford, who was one of the players that missed the penalty, if you weren't watching, and they said, "We're proud of Marcus Rashford for everything he's done to support young people, both with the Prince's Trust and beyond. The racist abuse that he and others in the England team have received is unacceptable and proves that the fight for equality continues." Yes, and obviously there's been a debate, pretty much all week, and we won't go into the details because this is a royal podcast, not a football podcast, not a political podcast either. But yes, it's involved the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, and whether or not he should have condemned those that were booing the players for taking the knee earlier in the tournament. It's prompted a massive debate, but it started earlier in the week. On the Monday after the final with Prince William and Prince Charles. So, not particularly pleasant. But if we can stay on matters sporting... Well, can I just stay on football and rewind? Pre-game, we had a message from the Queen, didn't we? Oh, yes. We had, and actually, I remember thinking there aren't many people who can say 55 years ago, I presented the World Cup to Sir Bobby Moore.
So we'll show you those pictures that were released.
Yes.
And she said it was a letter to
1966, of course, for anyone who doesn't know.
Gareth Southgate, the England manager, but it was also to the whole England team. And she was talking about how, 55 years ago, she was fortunate enough to present the World Cup to Bobby Moore and saw what it meant to players, management and support staff to reach and win the final of a major international football tournament. She sent her congratulations from her and her family to the team for reaching the final and her good wishes for tomorrow, the final.
Actually, talking about before the football, I really can't believe this is happening, said Prince William. So we could play the video of, I suppose this would be expressing the hope that everyone had on the Saturday and the Sunday before the match, that it actually might be coming home, or as William said, bring it home. So this is the message that William, as president of the FA, released to the England team shortly before the game.
Gareth, Harry, and to every member of the England team on and off the pitch, just want to wish you the very best of luck for tonight. What a team performance it's been. Every member of the squad has played their part, and all the backroom team as well have been truly essential. And can't really believe this is happening. So exciting, and just wish you the very best of luck. You bring out the very best of England, and we are all behind you. The whole country is behind you. So bring it home.
So another sporting matter is the tennis. Now, Kate's a big tennis fan, and she had to isolate a little bit, didn't she? Because she came into contact with someone who had COVID. Then she was able to go back for the final. Lucky her. I'm always jealous of anyone who gets to go to a Wembley final or a Wimbledon final. Of course, but and the other news from Wimbledon, of course, is that the Queen's cousin, the Duke of Kent, who's been president of the All England Club for many years. 50 years.
50 years.
Long time. He has decided that he will be stepping down from that role. They haven't announced whether or not he's going to be replaced by Kate, who's currently the patron. But one would imagine that that would be a very sensible. Didn't Kate take her patron role from the Queen a couple of years ago?
2016, I think.
Yeah.
So she was there on Saturday for the ladies' final with Prince William, and then on Sunday for the men's final, she took her dad.
Took her dad and then went off to the football.
And then raced across London for the football. And she was also, Dad Michael was also there on Friday for the men's semi-final. He was. I was actually lucky enough to go.
Did he wave?
They were sitting sort of opposite where I was sitting in the royal box, and then I also saw Pippa and James. They were in the stands, sort of.
Pippa and James Middleton, in case you don't know.
Yeah.
Kate's sister, Pippa Middleton, and brother-in-law James. Not called Middleton anymore.
Matthews.
Matthews, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Duke of Kent no more. I mean, so that was an announcement that came from Buckingham Palace on Saturday, I think it was, wasn't it?
I think it was on Friday, actually.
Or Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
And so that's a probably his most high-profile role.
I think so. I mean, we saw him at the mini trooping this year, sitting next to the Queen in the quadrangle of Windsor Castle. But yeah, I think every year you see him at Wimbledon, and he presents the trophies. He was joined on court by the Duchess of Cambridge this year, so we can probably show you some images from that. And
when you went on Friday, how did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was amazing. I had men's semi-finals day, so I mean, not bad. Yes, yeah, it was amazing. So very lucky, and nice to see some live sport again.
Yes. Talking of watching things.
Oh yeah, God, I don't know where you're going with this.
You can watch something new on Netflix soon.
You can watch something new on Netflix soon. Yes. Where's the announcement? Let me find it.
So
here we go.
So you're aware that Meghan and Harry have a deal with Netflix, and they've produced various things with them. Harry had his thing with Oprah, didn't he? Mental health. The Me You Can't See. That was on Apple TV.
That was Apple. I think that was
before they signed their
for
Netflix
Archwell.
Complex. So Archwell is now going to produce an animated series, which Meghan is going to be producing with Elton John's husband. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
About a heroine who finds inspiration from female leaders in history. Yeah,
its working title is Pearl. It focuses on a young girl's heroic adventure.
Is she called Pearl, do you think? I don't know, just working title.
Working title. Yeah. Focuses on a young girl's heroic adventure as she learns to step into her power and finds inspiration from influential women throughout history.
Right. Okay. So let's name some influential women throughout history. It doesn't say any. Florence Nightingale, maybe.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama, perhaps, more contemporary history.
You're right. The girl is called Pearl.
The girl is called Pearl.
Meghan says, like many girls her age, our heroine Pearl is on a journey of self-discovery as she tries to overcome life's daily challenges. I'm thrilled that Archwell Productions partnered with the powerhouse platform of Netflix, and these incredible producers will together bring you this new animated series, which celebrates extraordinary women throughout history. David Furnish, Elton John's partner, and I have been eager to bring this special series to light, and I'm delighted we are able to announce it today.
There we are. So how many have they done for Netflix now? Was that their...
So the Invictus series, that was a Netflix one, wasn't it?
Is Harry's one, yes.
That's Harry's.
This is the second announcement?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But
Spotify's only had one podcast.
Spotify, we had the podcast, the holiday special at the end of last year.
We do a podcast every single week.
We do.
No, if I was paying money like podcast is paying money to Harry and Meghan, I would have thought they might have got more than one.
Not getting all that much bang for their buck at the moment, are they?
But maybe they're working on something really big.
Maybe they're working on something really big.
Yeah, we had...
Watch this space.
Yeah, fine. So we've actually got a Harry and Meghan section in here, which is who pointed out to you that we didn't mention them last week?
It's just someone got in touch on... social media.
Well, it only lasted a week.
It lasted a week, so yeah.
There we are. Parachute regiment. Now, if I was jumping out of the sky in 1971,
yeah,
that's before I was born. Definitely before you were born.
Definitely before I was born.
And meanwhile, Prince of Wales was jumping out of an aeroplane because he was training to be a jet pilot at the time. All of this kind of, I mean, when you're in the 1970s and Prince Charles was a young bachelor and it was obviously pre-marriage and pre-everything else that happened in his life, it's kind of hard to imagine him from that period, isn't it? Like, we watched some video of him recently, didn't we? Like, sort of, we might have even put it in the podcast of him coming out of the ice in
yes,
Canada.
we did.
And he was quite the action man,
action man, yeah.
In the 1970s. Anyway, so the Clarence Harris released some pictures of him. Here they are. Again, if you are watching this on YouTube, you'll be seeing them. If you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening to this, then you just need to head to our social media pages. Actually, having said that, I'm not sure if I put this one on Instagram. Yes, I did.
I think
on
you
my
did.
Instagram and my Twitter, actually. Yes, fine. So it's there if you want to see it. So Prince Charles, 1971, age what? He was born in 48, so 58, 68, 23 years old, something like that.
So, there were two pictures released of his first parachute jump, which was 1971 into Studland Bay in Dorset. And then there was another image released of him after he was appointed as Colonel-in-Chief of the Parachutes in 1977, and he requested to join a parachute training course at RAF Bryce Norton in 1978.
Now, I think I tweeted that he jumped out, and you don't know, you need to know your English geography to work out this one, jumped out of a plane over Andover and landed in Studland Bay. But somebody said that's a long, well, it is a long way away. Andover's like in sort of Hampshire on the Wiltshire border, Studland Bay's down on the Dorset coast. Apparently that doesn't hapen. I thought there might have been a strong northern wind.
Maybe that's where they took off.
Carried himself.
Maybe that's where they took off from.
Apparently the Andover is the plane from which he jumped.
Ah.
So he didn't jump out over Andover and in Studland Bay, because that
would have been some sort of record.
Well, yeah, or that the wind was so powerful that it took him that way. So anyway, he while he was at the parachute regiment in Colchester was it last week, and talking about it, he even spoke in a speech to the paras about that very jump all those years ago.
I must say I find it hard to believe that it has been 44 years since I became your Colonel-in-Chief, and nearly 50 years since I made my first parachute drop, initially upside down with my legs in the rigging lines, into Studland Bay, Dorset, where I was hauled out of the water by the Royal Marines. In that time I've seen 10 colonels commandant and some 75 commanding officers come and go, at least 16 of whom became generals. Some sat amongst us today.
So initially upside down with my legs in the rigging lines, talking about his first experience.
Initially upside down. Now that's probably why I wouldn't do a parachute jump. Just
wouldn't you?
My legs got
I'd have thought that would be the kind of thing you'd be up for.
I think I've got the opportunity of doing one actually in September. I haven't quite in my head worked out whether I would like to do.
Have you ever done a bungee jump?
Yes.
Yeah, I've done a bungee, but never a parachute.
Yeah, I've done the world's highest bungee jump.
Oh,
it was
wow.
at the time I did it, which was in South Africa.
Wow.
Over a ravine, and you jump off a bridge.
Well, if Chris has any photos, we'll add them in now.
Yeah, that was in the days before digital photography, so they won't be in my iPhone. I think probably in the days before iPhones. I think,
oh, wow.
When I did it that long ago.
That long ago.
I was just kind of worried that the bungee just wouldn't.
It's terrifying,
snap.
Isn't it?
It is terrifying because
yeah.
Everything in your head is saying, don't
do this, don't
it's
do this.
Nuts. Actually, even very recently, I jumped off. I went on one of those treetop climb things, and there's a thing that you just jump down and you get on a rope that breaks your fall. Oh. And even that, at the top, it was like everything in your body was saying, why are you stepping off?
Won't you say you've done the zip line as well in Wales?
Yes.
Across the...
Yeah.
Is it the quarry?
Across a slate quarry in Wales, yeah.
Anyway, we seem to have come slightly off topic, anyway, so back onto the Royals.
If you've got anything planned for your summer holidays, then there's a great zip line in North Wales, not far from Carnarvon Castle, actually, where Prince Charles, you could bring it back to
back to the Royals, there we are.
So if you go to this zip line in Wales, in the northwest of Wales, you can go and see where Prince Charles had his investiture in 1969. There you go.
There were also some really lovely pictures of the Prince of Wales meeting the parachute regimental mascot. It's a Shetland pony called Pegasus.
They all have these mascots, don't they? Do you
they
remember
do.
That one that Meghan saw in...
Yeah,
Cracken
in Edinburgh Castle.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason that one always comes up when we talk about mascots.
Yeah.
I think she was thinking, why?
What? Yeah.
What?
What?
What or why? There's 2 mentions of Meghan in the podcast. We better move on. Should we stick with animals and talk about elephants?
Let's talk about elephants.
Elephants. You might remember when we did this podcast a little while ago, I'd interviewed Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall. You didn't bother coming, did you?
This is the second time you've mentioned this in about as many weeks. And I was in America working very hard, I'll have you know.
And that's why I was drawing pictures of elephants on my piece of paper earlier.
Thank goodness you told them what it was. I mean, hold it up.
Duck. So hold on, here is said elephant. Can you see that? Yeah, not that good, is it?
No, it looks like a duck or a mouse or...
I think it looks quite elephant-like, personally, but anyway,
yes.
The trunk's not long enough. Maybe I'll make the trunk a bit longer. Anyway, elephants. So you'll remember that we spoke to Camilla way back in November? It was the
October, November
time. About her brother, her late brother's charity. So Mark Shand, her brother, set up Elephant Family, a charity that promotes the coexistence of humans and elephants in India, in particular, the Asian elephant, because of their habitats being increasingly encroached upon by humans. Anyway, so they had these, you might remember, these life-size elephants made from kind of a wicker or one of the invasive weeds. In that part of the world, brought them over, and they were sat in a shed because you couldn't do much with them. It was locked down, no one was allowed out. So Camilla basically gave them to her friends to go on display in their various gardens for a donation to the charity. Finally, the elephants have been displayed in London, in the royal parks in London. There's a herd of them in St James's Park, another in presumably Green.
Yeah, they're across the London.
All over the royal parks in London. And Camilla and Charles went to a sort of glitzy gala evening this week to raise more funds for the elephant charity, and obviously a charity that means a lot to her because of her brother. Yeah,
glitzy do. There were some of the elephants there, lots of famous faces, and sort of a finale to the campaign, which I think has been quite successful. And if you've been in London's parks, you can't miss them. They're life-size, and they're really, they're really beautiful. I
remember seeing them when they arrived in Highgrove, where we went and did the interview with the Duchess of Cornwall, and they were like hoisted in place on the end of a big crane that came out of the back of the lorry. I was quite surprised by the size of them, but as you might tell from my diagram of the elephants, I obviously took
part of the design team, thank goodness.
Visual image of them, and I've replicated it very well on my notepad beneath me. Anyway, so they were there. Someone was singing. Who was it?
Catherine Jenkins, the Welsh singer.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was a speech.
Again, something else I wasn't invited to. I didn't get to go to the Wimbledon final. I didn't get to go to Wembley, and I didn't get to go to last night's glitzy charity event.
No, never mind.
Obviously doing something wrong.
There was a speech, though, by the Prince of Wales, and one paragraph struck me when he said the coexistence campaign is, of course, a response to the increasing overlap between the human and animal world that is, in part, responsible for the spread of deadly zoonotic diseases. The last year has shown us more than ever the importance of dealing with issues like this, and he's been particularly pleased to see organisations that are so important to him working together to make this campaign happen. So I thought that was interesting that he...
I have never in my life heard the word zoonotic before. Have you?
You must have done.
Zoonotic, no.
Yes, I've definitely heard the Prince of Wales say it before.
Yeah, of course.
On this very
Something that
issue.
he would say.
On
But
this very
zoonotic diseases, I've not heard that before. Is
I've,
that animal disease or disease specific to zoos or...
I mean, I don't think I've got the
heard the word,
dictionary
you don't know what it means.
definition.
I'm going to have to quickly Google zoonotic.
But it is all about animals and wildlife living in harmony with, or us living in harmony with animals and the natural world, which is, you know, of huge importance to the Prince of Wales.
Shared between animals and people. So 8 zoonotic diseases shared between animals and people, most common. Isn't that interesting? West Nile virus, the plague, rabies, Lyme disease. Wow, zoonotic diseases. I like learning something new. Yes, I'm going to stay on a. No, I can't do that.
Oh gosh, a segue.
Trying to do a segue between elephants in the wild
and the gardens at
people
Buckingham Palace.
Picnicking. So yes, no, there's no link at all, is there? There's none.
Just that it's outside, I suppose.
None. There's not a link. Buckingham Palace. You might remember we told you that the Royal Collection Trust, the charity that runs the openings of Windsor Castle, Buckingham Palace, and all the rest of it, opened their gardens for picnicking. Now, this is something we were invited to. We couldn't go, wasn't it?
Because we were up
in. We had an invite to go somewhere and we couldn't go because we were in Coronation.
We were at Coronation
Street
Street,
with the Queen. Yeah. But they did invite us into Buckingham Palace just before it opened to members of the public. We are pleased to report, aren't we, that it's fully booked. So if you are thinking of going to Buckingham Palace to have a picnic, you can't. It's booked up, which is good news for the charity, the Royal Collection Trust, who are a bit short on cash.
Yeah, they've been massively hit by the pandemic. You know, they rely totally on visitors coming to their attractions. So they're kind of thinking of innovative ways this summer to make money. And one of them is, for the first time, they're having visitors into the garden at Buckingham Palace, and you can do a sort of a self-guided tour, but you can also have a picnic in the grounds.
Now, do you bring your own picnic?
Yes.
So you have to make your own sandwiches, of course. You don't need to just like pick it up, a little hamper as you go in the gate.
Well, the Queen sort of handing you a hamper as you arrive.
Here's a cucumber sandwich I made earlier.
No, I don't think so.
Right.
I think you take your own.
But looking at the pictures, we'll show you some of the pictures now. Again, if you haven't seen them, I'm going to say they are on our social media, but I will put them on our social media this afternoon before this podcast is published. But there are some nice pictures from the Royal Collection Trust of people actually doing the picnicking in Buckingham Palace gardens.
Yeah, and you can see, if you're on your self-guided tour, you can see the 3.5-acre lake and its island. You can see the plane trees planted by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, the 156-metre herbaceous border, the avenue of Indian chestnut trees, and the rose garden.
Sounds a bit like my garden, actually. 150 foot.
All you need is one of those elephants in your garden and you're set.
Exactly.
There we are.
Elephant. I mean, I've got a 3.5-acre pond.
Yeah.
It's bigger than a pond. It's a lake, isn't it?
It's a lake, yes. Yeah. A lake with an island.
An avenue of horse chestnut trees.
No, it sounds lovely. And,
do have
you know, I think...
crabapple tree.
And a basil plant. How can we forget the basil plant? You haven't mentioned one for a while.
It didn't do so well over the winter months.
No, and we've had a lot of rain recently.
I have since planted a new basil plant. I'll let you know how that one goes. Sorry if you fancied it, but you can't do it. But I think it's probably good news for the charity that they are actually booked up for the entire summer.
And hopefully it's gone so well that they might look at bringing it back again, because obviously there's no garden parties this year, sort of the royal garden parties because of COVID, but this is a really nice way to go and experience something different.
But if you are desperate, of course, to support the work of the Royal Collection Trust, then you can still go to Windsor Castle.
Yes.
You can still go to the Palace of Holyrood House. You can still go places and do things and raise money. And we told you about the Duke of Edinburgh exhibition, which is on at Windsor Castle, which is part of your ticket entrance, if you so wish. My list. What's on my list? Oh, investiture. Talking of, this is not at Buckingham Palace. It's at St James's Palace, presumably because Buckingham Palace is still under construction, so they couldn't do it in the grand ballroom where they would normally do it.
They're sort of using this opportunity, aren't they, to really crack on with work. But investitures do happen at St James's Palace, and this one was led by the Prince of Wales, and seemed to have a real focus this week on the NHS. The CEO of the NHS, Simon Stevens, was knighted, and various other people that have sort of been...
Soon to depart CEO, isn't it, Simon Stevens? He's been ennobled into the Lords as well, so he's got a new career coming. Yes.
He used the opportunity to sort of encourage... He did an interview afterwards to encourage younger people particularly to get out and get their vaccinations, which is obviously... there's a huge drive going on at the moment for that.
And of course, there were plenty of NHS people there as well. And I kind of think when you're getting an OBE or MBE or whatever it is, you sort of kind of forget what it means to the individual. You know, the investitures happen quite regularly. They don't get a lot of press coverage, but it means a lot to the person getting them, doesn't it? Yeah,
and it was I said it was an opportunity this week to kind of really focus on the NHS, and particularly some of those that have been on the front line tackling the pandemic. A really nice way to recognise the work that they've done over the last year.
I'm Ganesh Thrillingham. I'm a consultant in intensive care at London North West Hospital's NHS Trust, and I'm the immediate past president of the Intensive Care Society. It's been an incredibly tough time for everyone in the NHS, and so very proud to have been part of it, and hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now.
What did Prince Charles say to you?
We talked about the pandemic and the effect on people and how terrible it's all been, and whether things are getting better now, which hopefully they are. So and he was very gracious about all the work that's gone into it by everybody.
I'm so proud, and I'm so proud of the team at City Harvest who have worked on the front lines every single day since this crisis began. And I think, I work with a very passionate team who recognize there is food available, but there are so many people in need. We'll just connect the two. And having the Prince of Wales hear a little bit about it inside before, and he has an interest in sustainability and using food.
Tell me what it was that you did during Ramadan last May. Talk to me about that.
I was fasting and I was working with it fasting, and I raised money.
Prince Charles had said that my father is originally from Bangladesh, and he was ashamed that he couldn't go for the celebration of 50-year celebration of Bangladesh, but he looks forward to going soon.
So we are kind of inching our way towards the summer. There are still some things happening next week which we know about, which we can't tell you about, which is quite normal. You must be used to that by now if you get to the end of the podcast. And we always say there's something happening next week that we can't tell you about.
Yep. Yes, something. Chris just said, "Oh, we could talk about that." No, abort. We can't.
Anyway, but you know where you need to go to find all the information. You go to my Twitter, which is @ChrisShipITV, or you go to her Twitter.
@LizzieITV.
Or you go to our Instagram, which is
@ITV News Royals.
And that's where you get all the information. The podcast will probably come to a natural conclusion next week, I would have thought, for the summer.
Because Chris is going on his holidays.
No.
No? You think it's just not going to be enough?
I think there will come a point, unless we can, that we'll have to temporarily suspend the podcast for the summer season.
For the summer season, and pick up in the autumn.
Every year, and there is a holiday coming up, which I do want to do if I can get there, COVID permitting, of course. Yeah. I mean, the Royals won't be going abroad, will they? Balmoral. Norfolk, and unless William and Kate will be spotted on a beach in Mallorca having to...
Didn't they go to the Isles of Scilly last year? I think they did. There you are.
Nice place to
Maybe
go.
They'll go.
Yeah, indeed. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching and listening and whatever else. However else you get your podcast, we do appreciate your involvement. I was going to say custom, but you don't pay. You don't pay for the podcast. You actually get it for free. Pay us if you want. Anyway, we ramble. See you next week.